when you spoke about identity
Hmm.
confusion during that, I guess during that time in your life, was it from the transition to middle school to high school,
Hmm.
when high school to college?
It was middle school to high school when I started to get a little confused about what it is that I wanted to do with my sexuality. And then I realized that, of course, I was raised in the church, so it was frowned upon and things like that. So I was really confused as to how would my parents take this, and I think I'm curious, and how would my father and my mother and my uncle, really my uncle, because
Your Uncle Herman?
yeah, my uncle Herman definitely is like not having it. So, yeah, I struggled a lot, and I couldn't talk to anybody because of the judgment of the church. So, it was really hard for me to reach out to anybody to discuss like what I was going through and why I felt that way, or what it is that I was struggling with, because I had nobody there for me.
So through high school, I guess your basketball coach
Hmm.
in high school and on in college. I think you talked about in college where you were working and going to school full
Hmm.
time and paying for a car and kind of
Oh
in a
yeah,
relationship
yeah.
and all that got kind of crazy.
Oh yeah.
Um, and it sounded like it may have spawned out of control at some point to where you had
Yes.
to, just throw your hands up and say, "Hey, I can't do this. God come into my life
Yeah.
and take this pain away." Was that during the college years or
That
so?
was definitely during the college years. Actually, that was my junior leading into my senior year. It was the hardest year of my life. Technically, pretty much leaving my apartment. My car was messed up, so I had to take buses to get back and forth to school. It was really, really my senior year. And I was in a
Senior.
relationship that was abusive. And it just wasn't healthy. It wasn't a healthy relationship. And the fact that I had like 18 hours in college. So I was still carrying a full load and still going to work because I had to pay for the bills, even though I wasn't living at the apartment. So for me, it was too much for me to bear. So I started going to church, and I was like, well, maybe God or somebody will help me, because this is the only other thing I have going for myself at this point. So then I started getting kind of into the church, and I was like, okay, well, let me talk to some people. Let me figure out, my relationship with God was always there, but it was never magnified. It was never big. So, I mean, I always prayed and things like that, but
Right.
I really got kind of serious because I had experienced so much trauma in my life that I was just done with the lifestyle that I was living. I was done with consecutively losing. I would say I felt like I was losing every time I turned around.
You say you was paying for an apartment that you weren't staying in.
Yes.
Uh, that's a bit much. But but also too, you spoke about, and I think this was during college and maybe some in high school, but I
Mhm.
think you particularly made this point about in the book when you were talking about in college, where you had started hanging out with I guess friends that were smoking and drinking,
Yeah.
and you kind of got into
Yeah.
that lifestyle. And I always say that those are lifestyle addictions,
Mhm.
that we're doing what we see our friends and associates
Oh
do,
yeah.
and we gravitate to that lifestyle, but it becomes addictive because when we want to get out of it, we're still in it because our friends are in it. Did you
Right.
feel that way about when you was doing the drinking?
Yeah.
Did you ever smoke weed with
I mean,
I guess around that setting?
there was maybe two times that I tried to smoke weed and things like that, but it wasn't really for me because I didn't like not being in control. Now, as far as drinking, there was a time where I would just drink a lot of wine to kind of numb the pain, because I kept having flashbacks of being molested. So yeah, I felt like when they were going through their pain, I could drink with them at least. I wasn't a smoker at all, really.
They
And
just blow smoke in your face and
Yeah, they just blow smoke at me. And as far as smoking, there was times where I tried to smoke Black and Miles and things like that, but it literally hurt my throat, so
I heard it.
I had to let that go really quickly. So that wasn't really. I mean, I just really wanted to fit in. I wanted to feel included, but I realized that I was going to stick out regardless. That wasn't for me.
So before we, and I'm gonna talk about some of the spiritual healing that
Hmm.
you had to go through to get to where you are now. But even before the healing came, as you said, you were having, I guess, flashbacks of the childhood molestation and just that going back to those memories,
Mm-hmm.
did you seek counseling or therapy, to kind of get your mind right, so to speak,
Oh
or get
yeah.
your emotional state back? How did you make that
Definitely.
transition?
What happened was I started to tell myself I'm not the victim anymore, and I had to find out that I had to learn to be victorious through the circumstance. So what I did was I did seek professional help because a
Okay,
lot of people will not seek professional help that are in the spiritual field, but I feel like God did send professionals for a reason.
right.
So I did seek counseling. I did seek spiritual counseling as well as professional counseling as a trade. And what happened was I was around people who authentically cared for me and were supportive of me and not really judging me where I was,
Right.
but they were loving on me. So it showed me completely the different aspects of the love of God in a way because I saw more judgment growing up. I didn't see anything about like love of God. I didn't see anything about caring for a person right where they are. So when I started seeing other people that were maturing as well in their walk with Christ, like come and take me in and help me, that's how I became like I was getting healed every year, each year because I had good people in my circle, healthy people in my circle.
Okay. Was that doing college?
Yes, that was actually leaving college, going into my just adult life.
Okay. So let's talk about that for um, leaving college when you graduate. You was graduating from Central,
Hmm.
and you was, I think at that point you was ready for a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
So at the same time, were you meeting the people that I guess were in the church?
Hmm.
Had you gotten involved in church at that point, or was you stepping into that framework or that ministry? Did
Well,
this happen after college or during that transition from college to I guess your work life?
yeah, what happened was actually I started to attend a church for 6 years before I actually got into ministry. But for those
Mm-hmm.
6 years, I had good people around me and loving people at the church that, like I said, was helping me with things and just teaching me things that I never knew about. Because, of course, my uncle was there for me most of my life, but there was things that a woman should learn from another woman that I think that is necessary. So I had to get some mentors that were in that church for about 6 years before I actually even stepped into thinking about doing ministry at all. Um, it was really my pastor that was telling me that you pretty much have a call in your life. You need to go to seminary. So that's what led me from out of college into the church onto seminary.
Was it a female pastor or that inspired you to, or that said that you had a calling on your life?
Yes, she was a female. Lavisha Williams was a great pastor. She definitely was one of my mentors as well as she was the pastor of the church that I was attending at that time.
And then you moved on to a larger church or another church family.
Yes, I actually moved on to my family's church, which is a little smaller, a smaller church, and they had moved me up to a position of the youth minister there.
Okay. So let's talk about the youth ministry. I know you've been involved with youth ministry, I guess, since then, and you and some of your, I guess, your friends. You also had a business partner that
Yeah.
you also still have the partnership or the business.
Mm-hmm.
Can
Yeah.
you share a little bit about that business and
Uh,
how that came to be?
well, as soon as we finished college, as soon as I finished college, I was standing outside a parking lot and I asked a friend of mine, I said, listen, we got to do something for our own community. These kids are not doing well. So she agreed. And then so I decided to ask my uncle to help us do a business plan and help us get an organization, a nonprofit together, which we did. We served the community for about 3 months and then we got our first grant through Carborough High School. And so we mentor young women from ninth grade up into their 12th grade, making sure they don't drop out of school and just being there like a big sister program. So, yes, up until now, we still have our nonprofit. We're still doing that. And we're still reaching out to the young people, being healthy mentors.
Okay. And what's the nonprofit Building Communities Matter
Yes,
Inc.?
yes, it's Building
Community.
Communities Matter, Inc.
All right, let me just send a shout out to if there's anyone out there that want to call in that has any questions for Gabrielle. You can call in at 919-518-9773. The chat room is open. You can call in again at 518-9773. Gabrielle is sharing her new book. Can you hold your
Yes.
book up again? And it's called Still Standing. And it talks about the trials and tribulations and some of the identity confusion that she went through, and also getting involved in the ministry, some of the childhood abuse that she endured,